thank you very much for coming to our talk. Hopefully you're interested in the subject matter, or you just wanted to be able to sit down whilst you eat. Just try and sort this out. Right, yes, we're going to talk about the importance of measurement in building brands, because as we all know, if people can't see your brand, they don't know about it, and they therefore cannot buy it, which is a disaster if you're a marketer. We're going to break this into kind of 3 different sort of courses, if you like. I'll try not to do too many food puns. I'm going to talk a little bit to start with. Then we've got the main dish of the day, which is Peter over there from Boots. And then hopefully we'll facilitate a bit of conversation around the tables as well with this theme. So we've got a few of our colleagues here today from AudienceProject. If they put their hands up, we've got Martyn over there, Martyn over there with his mouth full. There is Alicia, and then Paul over there as well. So, yes, enjoy your lunch, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of issues and potentially the solutions around measurement in the marketplace that we're in today. I'm going to kick off with a really spicy video, and it's quite short. Here we go. Brilliant. Right, what happens next? Okay, so very briefly about ourselves. So we're a Danish-founded research and technology company. Our core product is really a sort of software as a service cross-media audience measurement platform. And in line with being a Danish company, our purpose is defined a little bit in a sort of Danish Nordic noir sort of style of bringing light to the dark of advertising. And that's not to suggest that it's all awful what we do, but we all know if we're marketing or even selling media, it's very hard to understand what's actually happening, and especially now in the fragmented space. So that's the purpose, to really help people see what's going on with advertising and media. I'm the commercial director in the UK. I opened the market here 7 years ago. If you don't mind, a very quick show of hands. I'm just wondering who in the room is kind of, if you like, buying media, or would be measuring to buy, if you wouldn't mind. We've got a few of you guys there. And then who is sort of selling media, if you like? Because we work both with the buy side and the sell side. And then everyone in between is probably a vendor or working in an agency or something, I would guess. Or anything other than that, please shout out. I'd love to know why you're here. Okay, so the purpose is to bring light to the dark of advertising. And the idea really, and hopefully this is what you're all thinking as well, is that there are really quite simple questions that we're trying to answer to look at effectiveness in the space. So who is the campaign reaching? How many people is the campaign reaching? And how often, and especially frequency, are they seeing the ads? And the key thing we think in this is how does each channel contribute? Because that's where there is an opportunity to improve something within a media plan, is understanding how each part is valued, really. So the appetizer, it's complex. Now, why is it complex? In the good old days, TV was this, and I think everyone knows this argument, but we know that the world has changed. But why was it so much easier in a way for marketers in the old days? And that was because TV was one of the very few mass media, and so there was a very reliable relationship between money spent on advertising, audiences, and of course the impact of that. So it was relatively easy to predict what would happen if you spent more money on TV. Things have changed. I stole this slide from a presentation that a guy called Nigel Wally did, who's even taller than me and older, but he's not here. But it was a brilliant presentation, and this was a sort of build slide that he did that ends with this kind of ecosystem spaghetti. He talks about it in terms of the clash between internet users and TV audiences. It's quite hard to make out. I'm quite used to this slide now, but really the idea is you've got different companies that are all suddenly big TV companies, if you like, in one way or another. But an e-commerce ecosystem like Amazon is now really making a lot of noise and content in the TV space. So the upshot of this, obviously, is it's very difficult to know what to choose if you're building a media plan, or indeed if you're a seller, if you're part of the media plan. And how on earth does anyone like Peter and his teams who are buying at Boots to build the brand and sell products, how do they start? Luckily, there's quite a lot of different measurements that you can use to try and sort of train your media plan and improve it over time. Ranging from attribution, MMM, that always gets talked about. I think everyone here who's a marketer will be using MMM. Are you right? Is there a doctor? Are you right?
I just saw the slide.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I shouldn't mention MMM again. You're right. ACR, measurement attention, is very, very big at the moment, and the debate around ad equivalence. On the right-hand side, I've listed out really the sort of measurement or media and audience measurement systems that are kind of operating in the UK. And we are one of those, alongside C-Flight, Origin, Dovetail, and so on. Now, why are we in the business of audience measurement as a small company? Because we believe that building reach is fundamental to growing a brand and its visibility, and therefore increasing sales. But why is that? Excuse me. If you're going to go out on an adventure like this probably Danish guy who's going to go walking in the mountains, you need a very good base layer. You need good pants and everything else, so that you can build on top of that with good kit as well. Without the base layer correct, or the foundations in place, it's unlikely to be a successful or safe journey. The base layer from our point of view, and this is actually based on something that was said to me when I started out many years ago in media by the sort of, the old sort of wise TV guys that I started working with, was about 1+ cover, which was a concept I knew nothing about. I'd been selling space in magazines before that. But, if anyone doesn't know what this is, it's basically your simple reach curve of how many people have seen the ad at least once. And it has kind of the best ROI you can ever get out of anything ever, as far as I'm concerned, because if you turn someone who doesn't know about your product into someone who does, that is a massive return on investment. You're bringing net new people into the funnel. Don't just take my word for it. Byron Sharp, most people I would imagine will be familiar with this, or at least the sort of output from it, if it hasn't been read all the way through, but it's a book all about growing brands. It's very empirically driven, but it came... really the conclusion of it was some really big talking points that underpin most sort of brand marketing theory. These two work very well together, but Byron Sharp stated in 2010, brands grow when they reach more buyers more often and get them to buy more. I don't think the chap from the company that sells Ronsil is here at the moment, but that is a very Ronsil way of looking at it, because it just must be true. The same goes for the most effective way to attract new customers is to reach net new or more people in a larger audience. And another point, and unfortunately I missed the session earlier, so hopefully I'm not going to contradict the mental availability piece that the Clear Channel person talked about. But I think the mental availability and physical availability point stands really high at the moment in our marketplace, because there is quite a big opportunity to create mental availability in some of the newer platforms that are coming out, and you need the measurement to understand what's happening there, because there aren't necessarily high ad loads in those spaces at the moment like you would see on certain other more traditional platforms. So there is an opportunity to stand out and also create the right frequency if you can use measurements to work out what the right frequency is to drive the effect that you're looking for. But this is all about reach. And it wasn't just Byron Sharp. There was a big study done, a really big study of 1,000 campaigns in 2021 that looked at different media mixes. There were, I think there were 9 different sort of categories of media mixes. Through the study, it found out that there were you could get up to 2.6 times more effect with a different media mix. And those campaigns that were like not being particularly effective tended to overinvest in one channel. It wasn't always the same channel. but it's measurement that will bring out those sorts of insights and help you improve. The side dish, here we go with the menu piece, is what about the tangible audiences then? If you're on side with the idea of reach measurement being very important to get those sort of almost most major gains you can make as you're optimizing a media year or a campaign, what does that mean? In our platform, we're allowing customers can measure various sort of channels in various ways. I won't go into how this all works, but the idea is it covers pretty much most of the AV ecosystem. And then linear TV data is covered, in our case, by the local JIC, so in the UK it would be BARB. But we're offering the ability to see in one place all of these different channels in your campaign working together, which is quite often new. It's not easy to do that. It's taken us 15 years to build the system. And really what you can get at the very first instance is a beautiful Venn diagram that offers, in quite a lot of cases, a eureka moment of we were buying individually, we were getting individual reports back from these different channels, but we didn't know how they worked together. So it goes back to my initial sort of talking about the purpose and those questions. To be able to see the overlap, and these made up numbers here, but first of all a total reach number, but then have the opportunity to optimise and pull that orange one out so that you're not necessarily reaching too many of the same people too many times, can hugely improve the reach. And likewise, when you put money and reach in the same chart, this gets very interesting, but also extremely valuable, because there's an opportunity to take, optimizations from something like when we look at I have no idea what colour this is, but this sort of toothpastey coloured line is indicating a campaign that is becoming increasingly expensive to reach net new people, and the underlying data will illustrate why. Perhaps it's frequency, perhaps the reach curve's topped out, etc. But mid-campaign, if you've got the people to do it, you want to stop doing that and save money and reinvest it somewhere else to get better effect. And this is really the purpose that most customers have who are doing this with us or doing other types of measurement. Normally it's on the left because nobody really wants to ask their boss for a lower budget, but it's about efficiency, reaching more people with the same budget because it drives effect, sales, performance, share price further down the line. And to wrap it up, I think this is just a case study that shows someone who read the Byron Sharp book, who was one of our customers, and said, right, I've got to find more reach, and used measurement to find that reach by adding new channels that were TV-like to find that additional reach. So that's enough from me. We want to hear from someone who's not kind of subtly trying to sell you the platform. That's why we've not been. Hopefully, don't laugh. It was subtle.
It wasn't that subtle.
Thank you very much. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you could put your hands together and welcome our main dish today. It's Mr. Peter Grant, Head of Media Effectiveness from Boots.
Wonderful. Thank you. Got me here, Martyn.
Okay.
Where do you want me?
What? The customer is always right, Peter. Where would you like to sit? Do you want to sit on the stand?
I'll go here.
Don't forget your microphone as well.
Another one?
All right, so I think I'm going to ask Peter a couple of questions, but you are most welcome to sort of join in here. We want to make this as interactive and enjoyable for you as well. There's lots of people with expertise in the room and experience. So it's great to hear from everyone, not just me and Peter. But I'm going to kick it off. So Peter, before we leap into the measurement chat, could you give us a quick takeaway about yourself in and out of work?
Oh, okay. Well, the most interesting bit is out of work, isn't it? So I've got 3 kids. My son has just gone off to university in Bath, and I was sobbing away as he left. That's still quite tough. It's still quite raw. My daughter's at York, so I've got 1 left in the house now. She's 16, just started A-levels. We live in Nottingham. I'm from Yorkshire. Work-wise, I dropped out of university. I started doing business and finance, then went on to another qualification, got bored of that, and went to live in Tenerife for 6 months doing all kinds of stuff. That was a lot more fun at 20 years old. Regretted that within a few months, and just started working my way through the world that we're in now. And I'm not a media person. I'm not a marketing person. I came to this quite raw about 6 years ago, and I think in many ways that's probably benefited me because I'm I don't think I'm anchored down by some of the stuff that I think maybe some of you people are. I just don't see the world the same way. And we'll maybe come on to a little bit of that shortly.
What about work then? I mean, what's your role at Boots at least? It was very interesting hearing about your previous life. I could go on about that. Yeah, what's your day-to-day at Boots?
Yeah. So I'm the head of media effectiveness. So we've got a pretty big media budget, and it's my job really to say how big that budget should be, which categories we should spend it on, what time of the year we should spend it on, and which platforms we should spend it on. Cool. That's broadly it.
Brilliant. I was hoping you were going to mention that you're really into fitness and cycling, because my next question is based on that. Are you interested in fitness and cycling?
I am interested in fitness and cycling. Well done. Sorry, Martyn, I missed that one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we didn't practice it. So thank you very much, Peter. We've heard you mention the perfect lap before. What does that mean? And is there a perfect lap in sort of media and effectiveness planning?
Yeah, I mean that comes from my childhood. I've got an older brother, and he was an absolute Formula One fanatic. He loved it, and I'm 7 or 8 years younger than him. So I grew up watching him watch the greats of the late 70s and 80s. And there's a French driver called Alain Prost, and he'd won 4 world titles at this stage, and he was approaching the end of his career. And he was interviewed about his ambition. And this is a guy who'd won everything. And he bearing in mind he'd driven probably hundreds of thousands of laps throughout his career. And he said his one remaining ambition was to drive the perfect lap. And I thought that was just amazing that a driver who'd achieved absolutely everything there was to achieve, he was still hankering after driving the one perfect lap. Yeah. And so it's a reference to that.
Ah, right. And did he manage it, actually? I don't know.
He never managed it, no. He never managed it.
Well, that's very sad. But, back to media and effectiveness. Is there what's the perfect lap in media and effectiveness? Is it possible, or, how do you set out to solve what are complicated problems and improve it?
I think the point of that, and where that has inspired me, is that it's okay to have an ideal. In fact, it's essential to have an ideal, and it doesn't matter that you don't hit it, because it forces you to say what is perfection, and then you aim at that. And so for me with media, again, this is maybe my Yorkshire roots, it would be eliminating all waste. Mm-hmm. So there is no waste in the campaign. So everything that you serve is served up in the right way to the right people. You might assign a commercial value to it. You might say it's got an ROI of 5 or some arbitrary number. But it would be, you could look at a campaign across all the platforms, across all the days, and you could say that's been planned and executed such that it's very difficult to see where there's any waste. That will never happen. There will always be waste. But that's fine, because that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah. Okay. So I've made a case for reach as being the foundation of media effectiveness. It's the thing you can perhaps make the most gains on most quickly by adding more reach or taking out the waste. Peter, do you agree?
It depends.
Oh, flipping heck.
It depends.
Okay.
So it would be very difficult to argue that Boots, for example, would gain much at the highest level by striving for more reach, because there's a level of awareness for some brands, some products, that you're almost right at the top, and I think for big businesses, the nuance of where reach matters and where it doesn't matter is often lost. So in our business, it may well be that, and we do this in the pharmacy part of the business, we have a whole bunch of new services. Now, clearly, there's a job to be done in making people. Is there feedback here? There's a
little feedback. I'm not sure how.
I'm not sure I need this. I'll just talk. Everyone tells me I've got a loud voice anyway. So if you can't hear me, I'll just speak a bit louder. So in Boots, we have a services part of the business, and many of those services are largely unknown. So clearly, there's a reach and an awareness job to be done at that level in the business. And if you bring a new brand into your business as a retailer, obviously, if you launch a new brand, then there's a job to be done there in building reach. But if you're trying to make people aware of the existence of a Tesco or a Boots, then there isn't too far to go on that. So you need to be choiceful and clear about where you're trying to build reach and awareness.
Yeah, and I think maybe would add trying new channels is quite important though, as they keep coming out. I mean that is where you can potentially see. I think, this new one here is net new. These people weren't watching the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to keep experimenting. It's like one foot in the present and and the extent to which you start moving away from what you know, and that's always going to be a balance. Because of course, when you start to move away from what you know, then you're starting to potentially risk some investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I had a slide in there earlier on about all the different types of measurement. That I don't think I listed everything, but I know that because we've been part of it. Boots runs a pretty comprehensive measurement and effectiveness program with tons of different vendors. How do you make sense of all that? And it might be interesting to mention sort of how you do. What I do know is you put these days on and so on with where you bring the vendors together. But I think that'd be quite interesting to find out a bit more about.
Yeah, I think we've arrived at where we are partly because I'm not a media person, and about 2 years ago, I actually started answering phone calls from agencies and asking if they were willing to put their claims on the line, if you like. So you'll get the phone call, say, we can measure this, we can do that. And I went, right, okay, well, here's some data, sign the NDAs, we've got our Christmas campaign coming up, let's see what you can do. And we got on board maybe half a dozen agencies, we gave them our Christmas data, and Martyn was one of these, and then we got them all together in a room about 3 months later and said, you've had everything, let's see if you can realise your claims. And we got them all together. I think somebody described it as the Hunger Games for agencies. There were a lot of nervous looks around the room. So we had Lumen there and Realise and 2 or 3 potentially competing vendors, and that's how I approached it. And it's like trying to put together an imperfect jigsaw. It really is. This idea that you can feed everything into a market mix model. You just can't do that. You're adding layers to what you know, and you're trying to make sense of it. It's like building an avatar from the skeleton up. So we have the econometrics or the market mix modelling right at the top. That informs our return on investment. We stress test that with geo-testing. So we've got a geo-testing partner. They've passed our country up into postcodes, and we go dark and we test and we test and we test, and we can do that at scale. We can do 4 or 5 tests now concurrently. We've run maybe 20 tests in the last year. So we can do YouTube online, YouTube in store, we can do VOD, we're doing Facebook, we're doing full platform test for search, blah, 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 all of that. We get the results back, we see what that looks like in the econometrics. From a technical point of view, when we're confident enough of that, we'll use that as priors in the model to constrain the market mix modelling. And that then gives us a return on investment. And that's all anybody in our business above probably Pete, Marky, our CMO, is bothered about. Nobody cares about attention or audience reach or creative power or any of that stuff. It's a commercial operation, so you've got to be absolutely focused on return on investment all the time, and right the way down the chain of command. If there's anybody in any of the teams that isn't clear about the role that they're playing to generate revenue and profit, then you need to have a conversation with them about that. So that's the first thing. So I sort of conceptualize it as a pyramid of values without return on investment at the top. Can I cover that off? Yes, I do that with ubiquity and measured. And then I move down, I ask further questions. So it might be why questions. So why did that work? And it might be, did it reach your audience effectively? Thank you, Martyn. Martyn helps with that. Are the assets getting the requisite amount of attention? We use Lumen for that. Is the creative quality where it should be? We're using Creative X for that. Is the strategic direction of the creative right? We use System 1 for that. We use Samba TV for some TV specific stuff. So you have this constellation of agencies, none of whom have deep relationships with one another. And what I'm trying to do is to get them to, I call it liberating data. It's like liberate the data. Because everyone's got their own data sources, because by mixing that data together, it can be really powerful. And Martyn knows we've got Lumen and an AudienceProject working on something that neither businesses have done, and that's to create something like, you'd probably call it a quality of reach metric, something like that. So you see the reach stuff and you go, so you've reached a load of people on TikTok. Who saw it? Who really attended to it? It's like, what does reach really mean? Yes, okay, reach builds brands, but did you really reach those people just because it flicked on the screen for half a second? Probably not. So we're using Lumen, which you get is one way of measuring attention, and merging that with Martyn's stuff on reach to get something around a quality of reach metric. And we might have an index. We might say, I don't know, 2 seconds of TV is worth, you need 20 seconds of TikTok in 0.25 second chunks, something like that. But I don't think anybody's doing that, so we're just going to play around with it.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think Sam from Direct Line's gone, but if he's here, he has done similar stuff, I think, and made these kind of metrics, and they're out. They would seem to be using it to more or less revalue the price they were willing to pay for certain media. Cool. That was a load of stuff you just said there, and it's complicated. You mentioned the senior people, but I mean, how do you buy time or get the kind of approval to do all of this work, which is really long term, when the boardroom at Boots, they need answers now, especially now you're owned by an American company, right? They're very short term.
It's trust. It's one word. It's trust. It doesn't matter. You're not going to build trust by showing people spreadsheets. You have to build a relationship with a CFO and right the way down the chain of command. And if you haven't got a really tight relation, if the CMO hasn't got a tight relationship with the CFO, then it's a bit like a zip, and you need to be zipped up all the way down the chain of command in all the functions. And it's not my area of expertise about how you go about building trust, but that's what you've got to do. There's no answer in a spreadsheet. You have to build. The CFO has to trust what you're saying, because if there isn't trust there, then you just won't function. You have to be. The marketing enterprise needs to be given freedom to go and do what it needs to do. It will only get that once the finance types trust the marketing chain of command.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question to Peter, and then we'll try and open it up a bit. This is a bit of a predictable one, but the future. This is called the future of media. Yes. So, what would you prefer? What would you like to see in the future around measurement and effectiveness?
I would love to see the conversation move on from what we can possibly measure to what we should be measuring. I think too much attention is given to the plethora of ways in which we can measure stuff, and not enough to what matters most. Measurement and attention, they're choices, and what people in this room who are working in this area have a responsibility for is to inform the business as to where they should be looking, where they should be spending attention. There was a great example a few weeks ago in my business. A ROAS of 60 was presented to our chief exec, Seb, and he said in the meeting, "Oh, that's amazing. Why can't we just do more of that? We need to do more. We need to do more." And that question rattled all the way down the chain of command, and it came to me. I think it was Snapchat, and I'm not divulging any secrets to say we don't spend tens of millions with Snapchat. It's relatively small. And there were so many problems with what had happened there, because first of all, it's ROAS, it's not incremental, it's till sales, it's store only, it's broadly defined by the platform, to some extent with the performance team, and then it was about $8,000. It was about it probably cost more to get all of those people mobilised. And then I was with Google a few weeks later, and I was telling this story to the guys at Google, and they said, "Oh, that's just so funny," because their head of department had lunch with Seb, and Seb had shared this story with this person at Google and said, "Oh, Snapchat, our ROAS, it's this. How come we're not there on Google?" And she went, "Oh, we should be there on Google as well." So it rattled all the way down the chain of command in Google as well, and then we convened and went, It's just crazy. So getting people focused on the right things. I mean, joking aside, how much inefficiency was built into that, and how many times have we found ourselves scrambling around to answer questions and we're not really sure. So just stop and say, well, why are you bothered about this? Why are we even trying to answer these questions?
Thank you, Peter. Let's have a big hand for our special guest today, Peter Boots. Thank you so much. We're running kind of ish out of time, Sam. What? Hello? Oh, was that an indication of time, or have you got a question?
I've got a question.
Brilliant. Yes. So let's hear it from the floor. Let's have questions, comments, anything you want to say. I was going to sort of try and facilitate round table discussion. I don't think we've got time for that. because Peter just banged on and on
Sorry,
about really
sorry.
interesting stuff.
Sorry.
I think that was good. Yes, please. And do you mind saying where you're from?
Yeah,
As well, you know?
I'm Frank Cassidy, and I work with the IPA Effectiveness team.
Ah,
Yeah.
So my question is, how much are you allowed to not know something, and how much are you allowed to fail? So you're talking about experimentation, but how much will they accept? We just don't know that, and we're going to do some work on it. And how much are you allowed to say this didn't work?
Well, you mean me personally, in our business personally?
Yeah.
Loads. Absolutely loads. You know, they're not...
Permission to fail.
Yeah, completely. And you know, I can't remember the Donald Rumsfeld saying, you know, when it sounded like a tangle of words, but it was right. It was something like there's not knowing what you don't know and all of that. And but yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just don't know and stuff that you don't know. And you get that. There are three things I try to instill in people I work with. One is play, one is integration, and the other one is focus. And the play element is really what we're talking about here, because play is about how you grow and develop. You know, where you see puppy dogs playing, you see kids playing. They're playing because it's fun, but they're not doing it because it's fun exactly. They're doing it because it aids development and growth. And what Martyn described earlier, pulling those suppliers together, that was a form of play. It's like, here are the rules of the game. We'll get people in to do stuff. It's going to be a little bit risky. It'll be stretching. You'll develop. You'll learn. And of course, you'll fall over. You'll fail. You'll fall over, but you'll get up. And if you can do that at pace, then I think you've got an opportunity to move into uncharted territory. And by definition, you will fail as you're doing that. And you're not going to bet 10 million quid on everything, but you know, so you have to do it proportionately. But play is so important, so important. And then the integration piece, the challenge is how do we get all of these bits of this imperfect jigsaw into something approximating a consistent narrative. And it might be you have the econometrics, but can you explain why it was £4? And then Martyn puts his things up and we go, well, you can see that. So we don't know what the optimal overlay is on a Venn diagram. We've not been doing it long enough. How far should they be pulled apart? We don't know. We don't know yet. But maybe in 2 years' time, when we've got loads of data, we will know, because we'll be able to see how that relates to commercial returns.
Brilliant. Anybody else? Anything to ask, say, shout out? Or you'll want to go back to the theatre? Or maybe get some fresh air. I think there's a few minutes before the next content. I think we'll leave it there then. So again, I really want to thank Peter so much for joining us and
you're welcome.
sharing your experience.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for coming. If you've got any questions, want to get in touch, obviously somewhere is a slide with contact details, but it's a long way after this. But you know, thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day, and look forward to talking to you all soon.
Thank you, guys.